Hello, my absolutely brilliant and beautiful astrology soulmates, and welcome to your weekly horoscope for the week of November 24th, taking us out of the month of November. And wow, this week is full of motion. We've got Saturn stationing direct, we've got Mercury stationing direct, we've got a first quarter moon that we're going to be checking in on as well to see where we're at in a pattern. It's something that we've been working on, but make no mistake that this week, the star of the show, hands down, is Venus. And I absolutely love that for us. Venus is in a lot of conversation happening this week, which means that our attention is coming back into a major body of work around what it is that we value, how we are reorganizing and living through the values of our inner value systems as well. Now, there's a lot of guidance that comes from Venus, particularly when we're connected to it, that does play out in how we attract things to us based on what we value financially, emotionally, relationally, creatively. And I don't know how many of you I've spoken to this year, where you leave comments down below and you talk about wanting the softness and wanting to be able to create. You're wanting to understand better how to get in alignment with your finances. Well, man, listen and perk your ears up this week to see where this is happening for you in your life, and you can use this energy. Now, before we jump in, quick reminders: timestamps for every day are in the description box down below. And if we haven't met before, I'm practicing professional astrologer Stormie Grace. It's so brilliant to have you here with us. And if you are one of the soulmate family members already, welcome back. Let's see what's going on this week. Now, that Venus Reset program is still open and available for you. That's in the description box as well. And I got the best piece of feedback on that this week, where Amira said to me, I needed this. I didn't know where to start, and this program showed me where to start. I needed this. And that, you guys, listen, if I ever make, create, or build anything, and that is the feedback that comes, I'm so grateful. So thank you for everybody who is jumping in and enjoying and using the Venus Reset program, because I know that you needed this, and I'm so happy to be able to provide that. Your 2026 annual horoscopes are out as well, so hopefully you've been able to see those with all five of the astrologers we pulled together, going through every section of life and how you can be looking to travel with that in 2026. And it's brilliant because it was built in such a way that you can grab a tea or a coffee or a little meal, sit down with your friends, each of you listen to the sections together, and really look at how you're going to structure and prioritize your year. They are deep, they are juicy. It's not just like, we're going to have the best year ever, new year, new me. Like, listen, Christine Skinner is giving it to you raw. She's like, hey, this particular time is rough. Let's be creative. You can do this. So I absolutely love what was poured into that for you guys. So make sure you click down into the playlist, find your sign, have a listen, and enjoy and share back with us if it is helping you. And of course, your digital transit calendars from our friends at Wise Guys are available for 2026. We use those all year long. So you can click down there, use my code, and get a little discount. All right, friends, into the week we go. So starting off here on Monday. Now, it's brilliant because as we're coming in on Monday, our moon day energy is coming in the vibration of Capricorn. Okay, so we're coming in, it's more grounded, it's more steady, it's more practical. We need to get things done. There's a sense of, emotionally, since this is our lunar energy, of thinking, okay, what's the strategy? What are we doing here? What are the traditions? What's the legacy that's playing out here? But I think that although we're coming in on Monday with this grounded energy, what really kind of amps up Monday for me and takes it to this next delicious place for us is looking where we have got Mercury, who's still retrograde at this point, meeting up with Venus at 22 degrees of Scorpio. Wow. What an absolutely brilliant conversation that is playing out here, because it's reopening, first of all, conversations that we have already had. These are conversations around intimacy, around money, around how do we merge, how do we create legacy, what is loyalty, what is truth. These are big conversations to be happening. And it's not like a soul level, it's not a surface level check-in. It's more of a soul level understanding. And at this point in the year, I think that we are all traveling in this space and this vibration that is like, no, I need to know the truth and I need to know what really matters because I don't have all this energy to focus on everything. So let's talk about what really matters, right? Now, this is actually the second time that we're seeing Mercury and Venus come together this year. And the first time we did that was on March 11th this year, and it was at 8 degrees of Aries. So, great idea to grab your chart, grab your journals. Go back, see what was happening for you March 11th, what was in place for you. And the difference is at that time, instead of Mercury being retrograde, it was Venus that was retrograde at that time. So it's interesting to see how it flips. And now we've got Venus who's direct and Mercury who's retrograde. So it's very much so on Monday, kind of this bookend, right? March, you're questioned the value, you're questioning it, you're like, okay, what is this? What does this mean? When I go back in myself, what does this really mean to me? And now, as we're here in November, you're revisiting the truth of what you chose as were your values, and is it living up to expectations, right? So maybe think about this too, because I was exploring this with my older daughter who's in college. And, there was this idea back in March, okay, in the next chapter of my life, I'm going to be living with this friend and we're going to do this. And we've got a plan for splitting the bills and da 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 da. You know how it goes when you're 20, right? And today, as this week is rolling in, they're supposed to sit down and have a renegotiation of the facts. So where is this showing up in your own life? Oh, and excuse my got a gun in my throat. I know I sound like I've been at a bar. I really haven't, okay? But on Monday, what you can keep in mind is that there is a conversation of deep emotional honesty. There's a recalibration in place, and let from the softness of Venus, where you can hear and feel and sense and stand in the power of your values, be the space where you're not compromising, you're just recalibrating. Okay, on Tuesday, we're going to have our first void of course moon happening early in the morning. So our early risers, that's definitely, I'm in the early morning crew. Just know that you're going to be in a space from 4:09, so let's call it 4 o'clock in the morning until about 5:30 in the morning, 5:15 really, of the void of course energy. So the moon is still, but the vibration we're taking into that is that the moon will have sextiled to Neptune. Okay, now this is a nice soft aspect to go into our void of course time with because it softens the imagination. It softens our intentions, the intuition, and we can bring clarity through that softness. It's almost kind of like a good energy as well, where you can come up with what feel like at the time dream-like solutions to things that need solutions, right? But it's the space where I would say if you happen to be up Tuesday morning in this void of course time, stop pushing and see what happens. What happens when you come from a more listening and not pushing place? What solutions float up to the surface? And as we get into the early morning hours, we get to that 5:15 time and we see that the moon shifts over into the vibration of Aquarius. What's coming up for you as it maybe felt like you came out of a very vivid dream state, or what feels like it's like nudging you and now you've got a little bit of a download, right? Because that energy coming into Aquarius will shift. Now you're a little bit more detached from what was so emotionally present and so tangible and very earthy in that Capricorn. And then it went void, of course, where it was like, it's like Earth, but you're kind of it's slipping through your fingers. And now you're more innovative as well. So Tuesday, as we're traveling throughout the day, it is going to be a great day for creative and innovative problem solving. Bring that to the table if you can. Talk it out with a friend. Aquarius is still a very social energy. So emotionally, and it's in air, you maybe need to talk it out with a friend. You need to brainstorm some kind of futuristic solution. And it's a great day for, I like to call it emotional intelligence, but it's also emotional logic. Like you've kind of been set free from just the deep emotion that was attached to it. And you're like, oh, I've been trying to fix this problem from the past emotionally. But logically, where logic and emotion come together, it doesn't actually align with who I am now. Why am I continuing to try and do that? Right? So it'd be a great day to see Tuesday how you use that. Now, as we roll into Wednesday, late morning, 11:30 a.m., Venus is in a conversation with Jupiter, who's also retrograde. And then we'll see later in the evening that Venus is now in a conversation with Saturn as well. So, quite a busy conversational day on Wednesday. It's a beautiful Venusian day on Wednesday. And although Wednesday is energetically ruled by our mercurial energy, Venus is showing up full throttle. So I hope that you take advantage of it. Give yourself a day to romance you and your life and soften into the moments, right? So first we've got Venus in that trine to Jupiter, who's retrograde there in Cancer, and it's still expanding what we value. But it makes it easier to see in that retrograde, okay, what do I actually value? And then say yes to the things that create the abundance around that, right? In both these Scorpio and Cancerian energies, this trine is a water trine. So it opens your trove of emotional wealth, of healing around receiving. Can you receive? Right? Can you receive? Can you call something to you and then receive it? Hold it in the container to allow it to stay and be trusted, to be shared, to live in abundance, to live in expansion, right? It can also be a great energy if you had needed to practice asking for help. This may sound like to some of you, yeah, whatever, no big deal, Stormy, but to some, the Venusian vibration is still so unheard of that I'm allowed to slow, I'm allowed to receive, I don't have to push, and I'm allowed to ask for help, right? Now, I love practical Venusian days as well. Sometimes when the Venus is just out there in the sky, I have found money, right? I have found money. Money has found me, right? It's like the Venusian vibration. So maybe you get an unexpected refund. Maybe the payment that comes to you in kind is some kind of gesture of softness or kindness, whether it comes from you or another person. There can be a business opportunity that opens there. These are the kind of Venusian things that can come, particularly if you're clear on being willing to receive what's coming in. Now, the receptivity does not stop there, friends. Later that day, as we see Venus then in a trine to Saturn, who's also, of course, retrograde, this is where structure and softness come together. And because Saturn has already made its way actually all the way through Pisces and taken that trip into Aries, now it's just coming back. It's a repeat conversation almost. Where is your discipline and your desire able to come together in an ease here? Right? It wants to stabilize the growth and the expansion that Jupiter brought in the morning. So maybe you recommit to therapy. Maybe you recommit to the Venus Reset program. Maybe you recommit to a contract, or you're setting new boundaries around something that you value. One of my clients shared with me that she scheduled out her time to not only do Venus Reset, which, yes, I definitely want you to do it, but also her time for her time. She's got 4 kids at home. She's got a lot going on. And she said, I didn't schedule it to tell other people they can't bother me. She said, I scheduled it so that I would remember to sit down and just take 15 minutes to romance myself. And I thought, yeah, absolutely. That's freaking brilliance. And that is a space where I think we actively participate as well in choosing, under this Saturnian energy, emotional maturity over old patterns of reaction to just produce, because what happens if I stand still, right? It's really grow up and receive energy. On Thursday, first of all, we're going to see that the moon is going to come into a square with Uranus as its last aspect before we head midday into our next void of course, okay? Now, as the moon is squaring into Uranus, this is an aspect of tension this time that we're taking into that void of course energy. So it can be like emotionally disruptive. We feel like we're being squished in some way. So this is what we'll be evaluating or opening to evaluate during this time, because Uranus is like, break free, let me live, let me be free, right? But also here in the moon, it's trying to break free from an old cycle. Don't repeat the cycle. Don't repeat the cycle. This would be the vocabulary I would give to this particular aspect that you're taking into your reflective void of course time. So if you feel a bit restless and something's trying to get a reaction from you, or you're like, you're right, Stormy, I'm going to plan my 15 minutes of romancing my life. And as soon as you sit down, 30 seconds in, the dog is doing whatever and you're up out of that seat. What if the dog's okay for 15 minutes? Don't repeat the cycle, right? Because this is the nature of it and it doesn't make it comfortable. This is square energy. Now, after that, at 2:23 p.m., we will see that the moon shifts into the vibration of Pisces. So once the moon comes here out of that tension into Pisces, the tone softens a bit, right? The emotional intuition, the ability to surrender, to allow transition to happen, to visual, to be more in the vision, to be more spiritually sensitive arises within us. Now, later in the day, we're going to see that Saturn is also going to station direct here at that 25 degrees of Pisces. And friends, Saturn has been on a journey, which means we have been on a journey. Now, if we flash back into May of this year, we saw that Saturn, okay, done with Pisces, moved into Aries. That was a whole thing. What happened for you when Saturn moved into Aries? I'm really curious. I am really, really curious. Listen, it was absolutely an amazing experience for me because typically what happens is when a planet moves into a new sign, the things, particularly in the body related to that sign, get put on notice, right? Like they get put on notice. So, interestingly enough, when Neptune moved into Aries, never in my life, and I have been a child and I have had some children and I have been around all their little creepy but beautiful friends. Never in my life have I had pink eye. And I was here alone in my home, in my little, my flat here. And I woke up to my eyes caked up. And I was like, what is this? And I went to the doctor and they said, you have pink eye. And I'm like, from who? Who has pink eye? I did, right? Okay, so that was Neptune interest entering into Aries. And then after that, we see some Saturn move into Aries, and I needed a new pair of glasses. Like that, Aries, man, boom, right here to the head, to the face, to the eyes, right? So, what was it like for you in May when Saturn moved into Aries? Okay, in July, we see Saturn come retrograde at that 1 degree of Aries. So now we've had a peak at this new vibration, but not quite finished with this Pisces vibration because then in September, Saturn had pulled back into Pisces and we were going back over these Piscean lessons that we had been learning. And now, as we're here on the 28th and we see Saturn direct here in Pisces, it's like, okay. First of all, we've got some clarity returning after months of, first of all, being thrust forward into a new sign and needing to start to figure out what is it that we're going to do? What am I really going to take control over? Right. And then we had some confusion, some delusion, some restructuring, even to our spiritual beliefs, restructuring to how we surrender, Pisces restructuring to how we receive. So now that Saturn is direct, those tests of our faith, those asks of surrender, that emotional or other sobriety has been tested. Now we get to live it out, right? If you were someone who spent the Saturn retrograde cycle unsure about a particular boundary that you needed to set in some way, or you were like, I'm not sure if I want to take the next step in some kind of commitment, as Saturn is direct now and going to do this final pass in Pisces, I think you have more clarity. Things are going to start to land now. You may realize something that you've been working on needs to transition out because holding it is unsustainable, right? Where you've been leaking energy, where you've been leaking emotionally, where you've been unable to receive. Something needs to be cut off because it is draining the F out of your peace. Some of these energies, I think, are going to be coming back online. Okay, Friday. As we get to Friday, we've got our first quarter energy happening at 6 degrees of Pisces. Now, this is early in the morning. This is going to be at 2 a.m., okay? And this has been a part of a very long lunar family story. So here, as we're at the first quarter time, we're going to flash back to February of this year. Go back to February 28th of 2025. This is where we had the new moon happening at 9 degrees of Pisces. So this is where you're planting those seeds of intention. What were you planting your seeds of intention around in this Pisces vibration? Because you needed emotional courage, not logic, to work with this. Something needed to be surrendered, and the Pisces energy was trying to soften it. Where have you been afraid to trust your intuition? And you're like, I want to trust it more. I want to have more faith. I want to engage what my spirit's asking me. I want to face and confront truths or secrets, that delusions, things that have been revealed, right? What are any of these things that you were planting your seeds of intention around? Because now at first quarter, we're going to do the heavy lifting. And if you look at this, if you look at this in news media, companies, things like that, you can see this at a bigger scale, right? All sorts of things being revealed in many, many, many different ways, good and bad, right? But we're the same. And now, as we're in this first quarter time, it's time to do the heavy lifting. We're going to take action. Now, you asked for it, those seeds, and now you're going to take the action to start striving. Where are you going to trust the intuition? Where are you going to receive? Where are you going to stop and listen and say, wait a minute, my reaction is this, but what is my intuition telling me? Where do I have more peace, the capacity to hold and continue to amplify abundance, or transmute instead of maintain energy that is not healthy, right? This is a real act. Now, thinking quite practically about this, some of you may have the conversation. This may be the action. You're going to have the conversation that you've felt like you were unable to have. You're going to send the email that you were afraid to write. You're going to tell someone your own version of the truth. You're going to start a project that you've been sitting on, or face some area of vulnerability, because we do have to be aware that this is Pisces energy. So it is the soft white underbelly. There's something vulnerable here. There's something that maybe has been in the story that logically you've been trying to avoid or bypass, but spiritually you won't be free if you keep avoiding it, right? So just think about that, where that's at in your story, and you're doing a good job. It takes a lot of emotional bravery to be in the Pisces vibration. So Pisces, you guys are doing a good job, okay? All right, when we get to Sunday and when we get to Saturday, we're not done with the week. When we get to Saturday, we get to the 29th, we see Mercury coming direct in Scorpio. This retrograde was very retrograde-y. I don't know about you, but it was very retrograde for me, but not in the mishaps kind of way. It was just like I literally felt like my head was on backwards the whole time, which was great because I got to see a lot of things. But how was the Mercury retrograde for you? Let me know in the comment section down below. Okay, now we started this Mercury retrograde, the pre-shadow conversation, October 21st. And this is where we saw Mercury in its pre-retrograde shadow time at this 20 degrees of Scorpio. So first of all, go back to that date, that time. What was happening? What was starting to come in? Because then when Mercury actually went retrograde on November 9th at that 6 degrees of Sagittarius, between 6 degrees of Sagittarius and 20 degrees of Scorpio, this is the story we were really, really watching. If you have planets, points, angles, midpoints, if you did a solar arc hit that, what's happening between these degrees in your energy? Now, Mercury will come direct today, which is absolutely brilliant, but I just like to also point out that the full Mercury retrograde's shadow time is not done until December 17th, where we see that Mercury gets back to that 6 degrees of Sagittarius and then can move on. So yes, I think energy and some confusion kind of gets out of the way. Certainly more truths become very clear, and they've been scorpionic, right? Hidden information is surfacing. Power dynamic stories have been surfacing. Your mind is coming back online with the depth and the clarity of what you're not able to look away from. But really, to feel a full force, I think we do have to wait until December. So take it easy. Take it easy with yourself. You're allowed to baby step yourself into the vulnerable and sensitive but empowering information and experiences that have come online. Like, just be mindful that the sudden results may not be there. Okay, then we're going to see that Venus is in an opposition with Uranus, who is at this 29 degrees of Scorpio before it's going to head into Sagittarius. But this is the well, whenever Uranus shows up, it's the break the pattern aspect, right? Venus is bringing this value. Uranus still wants liberation from these last moments. I think this is absolutely fascinating in a global financial way because it's literally changing money. It's going to change money, okay? But that will be a big story also in how we value it as a culture, what it means, how you earn, all of these things. So when we're thinking about the story, we do have to, in some way, include the mundane perspective as well. So for many of us, we're going to have the breakthroughs in Venusian ways: love, money, intimacy, self-worth, financial decisions, partnership dynamics. They could all be floating to the surfaces, you know? If something has been in a relationship dynamic, it could snap here, or it can also snap into clarity, right? It doesn't mean that it's bad. It means that it gets off the fence. That's the way Rick Levine describes Uranus. It comes and gets you off the fence. The breakthrough that you've needed finally freaking arrives. You decide, I am done repeating the cycle. I'm done repeating a value or an emotional cycle, something like that. This is a Venus reset transit. I would love you to jump into that program. As we get to Sunday, now we're officially going to be finishing the week. Venus, one more beautiful conversation in the sky for the week in a trine to Neptune. Over here, 29 degrees of Pisces as well. So this is absolutely lovely. We're ending the week with one of the aspects I think is one of the most soft, spiritually aligned trines that we get of the month, because Neptune and Venus are said to be vibrations of each other. Neptune is said to be the higher octave of Venus, and I call them the Bopsy twins when they're traveling together, because sometimes it's like, this is like too good. You know, if you've ever been to a place, I don't know, share this with me as well if you want. I'm chatting you guys up this week. I don't know if you've ever been to a place where the vibe is so relaxed that you're like, this is like almost too good. You know, sometimes I think like anesthesia, if you've never been in a like conscious place where it feels that way, anesthesia, that moment right before can be like that, where you're like, wow, this is like too good almost. But if you do something productive with it, like, you know, whatever, have surgery, I guess, then very good. But this is an energy where openness to compassion, to receptivity, to creativity, to that beautiful music that wants to run its way through your body and just massage stories that have been kept in there, your intuition. It's a heart-led creative energy, and things can feel, move, act, and speak really in ways that feel fun and aligned with your inner truth, right? And while I'm speaking it in this way, I want to also be mindful that something that may need to be spoken from a deep, spiritually courageous space may be telling a massive truth, right? But this is the kind of energy where the healing comes from something loving. Love feels like healing. Your spirit feels expanded under this energy. You reconnect with a softened stance, even in your body, in your hips. There's some powerfully um, meaningful, flowing truth that is coming from it. But the main purpose of all of this, I think, is that Venus is inviting the return to true self. What a week! I hope that you share with me what all of these Venusian themes really intensely this week are bringing to your attention. You're not imagining it. It is a heavy Venus week. Again, I would love for you to jump into the Venus Reset program, 22 days where you receive and allow me to pour into you as a framework to just get started on what does it even mean to move towards softness. Check out your 2026 playlist. I'm going to put it at the end here as well. If you don't know how to find these things that we're talking about every week in your chart, I've got a separate video to show you how to do that as well. I love you all very, very much. Have a beautiful week, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Bye, everybody.